What about the lockdown and, what we're seeing here with a lot of the measures coming into place, potential second waves, talk about vaccines or mandatory vaccines. What do you make of that on both sides of the Atlantic?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. Yeah, it's a strange world we live in. The whole coronavirus thing. Gosh, who knew that a virus could become so political? I guess it's indicative of the time we live in that this has become the debate now. The way in which coronavirus is now being treated on both sides of the Atlantic, I think, gives a very good indication of what has now become the new norm in politics on either side. In Britain, and I was recently over there, or within the last 6 weeks, and in Britain, no one's wearing a mask. Few people are wearing a mask, of course, but the majority of the population don't have to wear masks. It has become, life is trying to get back to normal. There is a general view that the economic situation can't take a second lockdown. A lot of the original science from the Imperial College study has now been disproved, and there is a growing perception that herd immunity has quite a lot of ground to it. And then you've also got examples such as states which didn't lock down. When you look at places like Sweden and other countries, of course, not just Sweden, but where the death rate stayed pretty low. And of course, if you were elderly or if you had a comorbidity, then of course that was a concern, and you should rightly be concerned, and you should try and take yourself out of harm's way. Exactly the same as if it was a particularly bad flu season. Now that as far as I could see, and when I'm reading, I get daily emails about what's going on in Britain, of course, and I keep a track of it. And of course, that has become the kind of dominant theme of the British debate. Contrast that with the US. The US now, it has become a partisan issue as to which states are going to lock down and which states are not. California DC as well, has just enforced mandatory face masks for no apparent reason, other than they say, well, we've had a small spike, right? Well, you've had a small spike. The only way that we're ever going to get through this, coronavirus is everywhere. There's absolutely no way that we are going to be able to restrain this thing through wearing face masks. So as a result, you might as well just get on with it and let society adapt and have herd immunity to it, rather than enforce, social restrictions and, protective wearing, which actually does very little to protect the wearer. There were early research reports coming out at the beginning of coronavirus that it was 80% more likely to go in through your eye than it was through your mouth and nose. So why aren't we all wearing goggles? This absurdity around the debate in the US has become totally dependent upon whether or not your governor is Democratic or whether or not your governor is Republican. You've seen Florida and Texas, of course, now, they're now determined to produce as much data to show these two states in negative lights as possible. The fatality rate has stayed very, very, very low. I was talking to a friend of mine in Texas a couple of days ago. She's a very well-established policy foundation, scholar. She's a qualified attorney in many states, very intelligent lady. And she was saying, would you like to know what the death rate is? She's pulled up a whole load of data. We went through it together. It was absolutely fascinating. The death rate now is less than seasonal flu in Texas. This is a disease which is killing, much the same as flu does. It kills the elderly, it kills the infirm, it kills those who've gone into care homes. If you're elderly and infirm, you're a much higher fatality risk anyway. You should be staying. You should not go out in a deadly flu season. Your risk of infection is much higher. At the same time, that should also be your choice as to whether or not you want to do it. My father is 76 years old, and he said to me, I've got limited numbers of years left on this earth. I don't want to spend one of them at home. And that's his decision. That's the personal freedom that we enjoy in the West. And in the US, it's just become this hugely partisan debate now. And of course, what's happening? People are suffering from great trauma in terms of just the loneliness which it's producing. Alcohol consumption has gone drastically up. Drug consumption is drastically up. These areas of life are the unsung dangers of coronavirus. And actually, they're going to kill far more people than anything to do with coronavirus itself, where the mortality rate is quite low. and as a result, it's a tragedy to watch this. It's really a tragedy to watch the failed policy response of a lot of the Democrats over here who have been pushing this incredibly aggressive narrative for more lockdowns, for more restrictions, for more face masks. It's depressing because it's become such a partisan issue. And you just say, well, ultimately, yeah, you may be, obviously they're trying to drive the debate towards a second lockdown and then a postal election, which of course is what they want. And in the UK, and the European states, you're starting to see the European states opening up. You don't have anywhere near the same partisanship of the medical debate as you do over here. And people are starting to get back to their normal lives. And you say, that's what America should be doing, right? But of course, it's become such a hot topic now. So, I mean, it's depressing to watch these states kind of force upon their citizens a second level of absurdity, which was never required in the first place.